biggest cheers from 50,000 fans go to the immortal star himself, Babe Ruth.
What if I told you that the greatest home run hitter of all time might have been an even better pitcher? What if Babe Ruth had never stepped into the batter's box and instead spent his entire career on the mound? Would we be talking about him as the greatest pitcher who ever lived instead of the Sultan of SWAT? This isn't just fantasy. It's a legitimate question that haunted Ruth himself until the day he died. Before he became the home run king, Babe Ruth was already one of the most dominant left-handed pitchers in baseball history, and the numbers suggest he might have been destined for pitching immortality. Everyone knows Ruth as the home run king, but here's what most people don't realize. If he had never switched to hitting full-time, Babe Ruth would still be in the Hall of Fame as a pitcher. That's not hyperbole. That's just how good his left arm was. When Ruth broke into professional baseball with the Boston Red Sox in 1914, he wasn't swinging for the fences. He was mowing down hitters with a devastating fastball and one of the nastiest curveballs in the American League. In an era where pitchers were expected to throw complete games, Ruth didn't just meet expectations, he exceeded them. Let's talk about Ruth's pitching statistics, because they're absolutely insane. In his 6 seasons as a primary pitcher, from 1914 to 1919, Ruth compiled an 89-46 record with a 2.28 ERA. But those numbers only scratch the surface of his dominance. In 1916, Ruth led the American League with a 1.75 ERA while going 23-12. He threw 324 innings that season, more than most modern pitchers throw in 2 seasons combined. And he didn't just pitch, he dominated. Ruth completed 23 of his 41 starts, threw 9 shutouts, and held opposing batters to a 2.01 average. Ruth's 1916 season would be Cy Young award-worthy today. His 1.75 ERA, 23 wins, and 9 shutouts would dominate any modern season. And remember, he was doing this at age 21, just hitting his prime as a pitcher. What made Ruth so effective on the mound wasn't just raw talent, it was his complete arsenal. His fastball sat in the low 90s, which was blazing fast for that era, but his curveball was his signature pitch, dropping off the table with such a spin break that batters looked foolish swinging at it. Ruth also had impeccable control for a power pitcher. He walked just 2.2 batters per 9 innings during his pitching career, well below the league average. He understood how to set up hitters, change speeds, and work both sides of the plate. Contemporary accounts describe Ruth as having an almost lazy delivery that deceived hitters. He'd rock back slowly, then explode forward with that long left arm, creating a deceptive angle that made his pitches even more difficult to pick up. But here's where it gets crazy. Ruth was even better in the postseason. His World Series ERA was .87 across 3 appearances. In the 1918 World Series, he threw 29 2/3 consecutive scoreless innings, a record that stood for 43 years until Whitey Ford broke it in 1961. Ruth was particularly proud of his World Series pitching record. He would frequently mention his .87 ERA in World Series play throughout his career, often saying it was one of his most treasured accomplishments. Anyone can hit home runs, Ruth once told a reporter, but shutting down the best hitters in the world in the World Series, that takes something special. To understand how good Ruth was as a pitcher, you need to understand who he was facing. This was the dead ball era, when offense was at a premium and pitching dominated the game. Ruth was competing against legends like Walter Johnson, Grover Cleveland Alexander, and Christy Mathewson. Yet, Ruth held his own against these Hall of Famers. In head-to-head matchups, Ruth often came out on top. He outdueled Walter Johnson multiple times, including a memorable 1-0 victory in 1917, where Ruth struck out 9 and allowed just 5 hits. The moment baseball changed forever came in 1918 when Red Sox manager Ed Barrow started using Ruth as a position player between pitching starts. Ruth hit 11 home runs that season while still going 13-7 on the mound with a 2.22 ERA. This was when Ruth himself began to feel the pull between his two talents. In a 1935 interview with the Sporting News, Ruth said, "I love to pitch. There's nothing like striking out a good hitter with a curveball, but I also love to hit, and hitting paid better." This quote reveals the internal conflict Ruth faced and the practical reality that drove his decision. But Ruth's feelings about pitching went deeper than just nostalgia. In his 1928 autobiography, he wrote, "Pitching is the most satisfying thing in baseball. When you're on the mound, you control the game. Every pitch is a battle of wits between you and the batter." This wasn't just reminiscing. This was a man who genuinely missed the chess match of pitching. Barrow later called it the toughest decision he ever made as a manager. He had to choose between keeping one of the best pitchers in baseball or unleashing what would become the greatest hitter of all time. He chose hitting, and the rest is history. The crazy part is that Ruth didn't just stop pitching when he became a full-time hitter. From 1920 to 1933, he made occasional appearances on the mound, going 5-0 with a 3.0 ERA. Even as his focus shifted entirely to hitting, he could still get major league hitters out. The most memorable of these comebacks happened in 1930. At age 35, Ruth pitched a complete game victory against the Washington Senators, striking out 3 and allowing just 11 hits. He hadn't regularly pitched in over a decade, yet still had enough left in that golden left arm to dominate professional hitters. After that 1930 performance, Ruth told reporters, "I felt like I was 20 years old again out there. My arm felt strong, my curveball was breaking sharp, and I remembered why I fell in love with the game in the first place." This wasn't just idle talk from an aging star reliving his glory days. Ruth had just proven at age 35, and after a decade away from pitching, that he could still dominate major league hitters. It made everyone wonder what might have been. Here's where the story gets fascinating. What if Ruth had never given up pitching? The projections are staggering, and Ruth himself was haunted by the same question. Based on his performance through 1919, Ruth was on pace to win over 300 games. Some baseball historians argue that Ruth could have been better than Cy Young, who holds the record for most career wins with 511. Ruth was winning at a higher rate than Young at the same age. Ruth's own comments revealed he shared this wondering. In a 1946 interview, just 2 years before his death, Ruth made a surprising admission. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd kept pitching. I think I could have won 400 games, maybe more." Perhaps most intriguingly, Ruth wondered about doing both longer. In a 1943 interview, he said, "If I had to do it over again, I might have tried to do both longer. I think I could have pitched every 4th day and played the outfield the other 3 days. Imagine the records I could have set." To put Ruth's pitching in modern perspective, imagine if Jacob deGrom or Garrett Cole suddenly decided to give up pitching to become a home run hitter. That's essentially what happened with Ruth. He was already an elite pitcher before he revolutionized hitting. Ruth's pitching career lasted just 6 seasons as a primary starter, but in that time, he proved he belonged among the elite hurlers of any era. His 2.28 career ERA ranks among the best for left-handed pitchers. His postseason dominance was unmatched. His stuff was electric. His control was pinpoint, and his competitiveness was legendary. So, how good was Babe Ruth as a pitcher? He was Hall of Fame good. He was Cy Young Award good. He was potentially the greatest left-handed pitcher who ever lived. Ruth also understood the historical significance of his choice. In one of his final interviews, he said, "I changed baseball by hitting home runs, but I might have changed it just as much by showing that a pitcher could dominate for 20 years. We'll never know. And that's what keeps me up at night sometimes." The tragedy, or perhaps the beauty, of Ruth's career is that we'll never know how great he could have been on the mound. He sacrificed pitching immortality to become hitting immortality, and baseball was forever changed. But here's what we do know. In an alternate universe where Ruth stayed on the mound, kids across America would still be dreaming of throwing like the Babe. His left arm was just as magical as his swing. We just got to see a lot less of it. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video and comment to let us know who you want to hear about next. Subscribe for more legendary baseball stories every week. This is Inside Baseball, where we bring you the best of the game.